There we go. Now
Got you. Woo!
everyone. There we are.
Everyone. Ah, can you hear me, Dave?
I can hear everyone. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you now. I had to press the right button.
I can't see you.
Yeah. Give me a thumbs up if you can see me.
Yes.
Give you a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yes.
Excellent. And there are a few people that are not here. They've left. They're hiding behind their screens.
And there will be people who are watching.
I'm just going to get a beer.
Go and get a beer very quick then. Do you know what you do? I think we'll stay off. I think we'll stay on unmute simply because it's a small gathering. It's a select gathering. Don't get me wrong. It's a wonderful gathering. We'll do it that way. If that's okay. Now, look, half the people have disappeared. This is very disconcerting. It would never happen at a festival.
Yes, it would. You know that. It's the main band comes on.
Oh, I can hear John Rowe.
Yeah, me too. I can
I
hear.
can hear Susan.
You should go on gallery and see each other. You know?
Oh.
Well,
I can see everyone except for Dave. If I put everyone on, Dave disappeared, so I thought it was quite important tonight.
It's quite important to have the storyteller on, isn't it?
Oh, hello. Here comes another one. Hello, Maria. How are you?
Hello. I'm multitasking. I'm cooking the tea at the same time.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, me too, Maria.
Hello, Susan.
Oh my God.
Hang on. We've got a message. Pauline can't hear everyone.
If Pauline turns on her audio.
Pauline, can you hear? She can't hear us. If someone messages,
I can hear you. I can hear you? Yes.
We
have technology.
Hi, Pauline.
There we are.
Are we quorate yet then?
You know, I think we're going to get going. We are going to get going. Shane will just have to leap in when he's ready. So good evening, everybody.
I'm back.
Oh, well, who's back?
I'm Shane.
This is a voice from nowhere. Switch the video on so we can see you, my friend. We can't see you.
Oh, hang on. What have we done? Back to the meeting. Where's the video button? Start video.
That's the one. Here we go.
Hey!
Yay!
Hey!
Well, good evening, everyone.
Suzanne on.
I'm actually going to turn my audio off because I'm cooking and it might be a bit noisy.
All right, then. Well, you know most of my riddles anyway, so that's fine. You know what? I'm going to crack on. Come one, come all. Tall, short, wide, thin, old, young, rich and poor. I make no distinction as long as you don't spit, swear, poke me in the eye or kick me in the leg. Welcome to my storytelling set. Now, I think most of you do know me here, but just to be formal, my name is Dave Tonge. Sometimes I'm called the yarnsmith of Norwich. I travel the land telling my tales. I wander the road bringing wonder wherever I go, except now I'm reduced to wandering my garden and talking to myself. And so it's a great honor to come and join you all tonight. And I'm going to be taking you all back to a time long ago, before there was television, before there were radios, before there were computers, before there were so-called smartphones where everyone went like that all the time. We're going back to a time when people still talk to each other. Imagine that. Spending the whole evening chatting with your family, having to talk to your kids all evening. We're going back to a time when people would plan for the following day's business. They would gossip about their neighbours. Raise your hand in the air if you've ever gossiped about your neighbour. Come on. Put your hand in your ear if you've never gossiped about your neighbour. You should try it, Lee. It's wonderful. It's very good fun. And they would tell stories and riddles. Riddles like this one. 2 legs, sitting on 3 legs, holding 1 leg. In came 4 legs and stole away 1 leg. Up got 2 legs and threw 3 legs at 4 legs and fetched back 1 leg. If you can get the answer to that riddle, I will tell you a story. If you can't, after this lockdown, you have to become my servants for the next 7 years. You have to fetch and carry for me. You have to cook and clean for me. You can come and live in me shed with Geoffrey Chaucer, but more about him in a while. And because I'm feeling very generous tonight, we're going to work on this as a community. Hands up if you want to tell me what 2 legs is. Anyone, put your hands up. Come on, is that you, Shane? Come on, Shane. What's 2 legs? Hang on, we're going to need some audio for you.
A human.
A human. All right, Shane. Is it a man or a woman, or boy or a girl? You decide.
Oh, a boy.
A boy. So we've got a boy sitting on 3 legs. Hands up if you can tell me what 3 legs is. Oh, Pauline. Come on, Pauline. It was Pauline. What was it?
A stool. A 3-legged stool.
Answer me this, Pauline. Is it a 3-legged stool, or is it a wonky 4-legged stool where 1 leg has already fallen off? You choose.
If it's my house, it's a wonky 4-legged stool.
They're the best kind there are.
Yeah.
So now what was it? Was it a man sitting on a wonky 4-legged stool eating 1 leg? So somebody, come on, what's 1 leg? Put your hand up if you can tell me. Norman.
Chicken leg.
Ah, good choice. I do like chicken leg. So we've got a man sitting on a wonky 4-legged stool holding a chicken leg. In comes 4 legs to steal away 1 leg. So what's 4 legs? Hands up. Gary? Come on, Gary.
Dog.
It's going to say a wolf, but we'll play it safe. A dog. Man sitting on a wonky 4-legged stool holding a chicken leg dog to steal away the chicken leg. Somebody's got to finish it off. Listen, Up got 2 legs to throw 3 legs at 4 legs and fetch back 1 leg. Somebody finish it off.
Somebody's chucked the stool at the dog.
Threw his cane.
Cheer at the dog.
What was that?
He threw the cane at the dog.
Right, okay. We'll gear that and fetch back his
chicken leg.
Chicken leg.
Chicken leg. But that's not quite the end of the riddle. Listen carefully. What if I was to tell you it's happened 1 time before? The riddle is this. How would I know it's happened before? And if you can tell me.
Yes, we can hear you.
How would you know if it happened before?
Exactly.
Chair's broken.
And I'll give you a clue. Pauline answered this one. Come on. Gary, come on, Gary. Do you know the answer?
No.
Somebody told you about it.
No, not even told.
Broken chair.
Who was that?
Chair.
Yeah,
the chair's broken.
The chair was broken. That wasn't the first time it had been chucked at the dog. Give yourselves a clap, everyone.
Is it a clap?
Go on. I thought for the first story, I would tell you something local, a Norfolk tale. Except it's not really a Norfolk tale. Like many stories I tell, like many stories other storytellers tell, it's travelled across the world before it got here. But just out of interest, hands up if you've ever been to Norfolk.
Yeah, we've been. Hand up.
Yeah, that's good. Keep your hands up if you've ever been to the small market town of Swaffham. Oh,
no, we haven't been.
Carefully. If you go to Swaffham, if you find yourself in the church there by accident or design, if you go to the chancel, the business end, you will see a carving about this big of a little wooden man with a pack upon his back. And the local people will tell you that that's John Chapman. That's the peddler of Swaffham. And if you don't know what a peddler is, it's simply this. Long ago, you didn't go to the shop came to you. The peddler would travel the highways, the byways, the trackways, the pathways, the greenways even, with a pack upon his back, calling out, "What do you lack? What do you lack? What will you buy from the pack on my back?" Except John Chapman, a peddler of Swaffham, was not very good at his craft. And so he was very poor.
Oh, poor Rosie.
So poor. He was so poor that there was a hole in his roof as big as his head where the rain poured in upon the hard earth floor. He was so poor, he was a bit like Pauline. All he had was one wonky stool. And every time he sat upon that stool, he fell off and cracked his bonds upon the floor. John Chapman, the peddler of Swaffham, was so poor, he didn't even have glass in the windows. Hands up if you got glass in the windows.
Oh, we do have glass in the windows.
Oh, you are very posh.
Oh, yeah.
Posh.
All he had was a shutter. And every time the wind blew, the shutter would go. And every time the wind blew fast, it would go. The only thing he had of any value was a garden. For at the end of the garden, there was an apple tree. Apples, big, red and rosy, but not quite big enough to block the whole universe. Every day, John Chapman, the peddler of Swaffham, he brought, he sold, he bought. At the end of the day, he was so tired, he fell into bed. And this night, no sooner did he fall into bed than he had a strange dream. For in the dream, a voice spoke to him. It said, John Chapman, go to London Bridge, for there you will hear good news. Well, John awoke. He thought, go to London. I can't go all the way to London, for London is a long, long, long way away from here. And besides, says John, dreams are silly. Dreams are sad. Dreams are for fools. You shouldn't take no notice of your dreams. And he didn't think anything more about it. The following day, he brought, he sold, he bought. At the end of the day, he was so tired, he fell into his bed. Then he had the same strange dream. For the voice said, John Chapman, go to London Bridge, for there you will hear good news. John awoke. He thought, go to London Bridge. I can't go all the way to London. London is a long, long, long way away from here. And besides, says John, dreams are silly, dreams are sad, dreams are for fools. You shouldn't take any notice of your dreams. And he didn't think anything more about it. Let's put it to the vote. Give me a thumbs up if you think he was right, that you shouldn't take no notice of your dreams.
Should you pay notice to your dreams?
Give me a thumbs down if you think he's wrong, that you should take notice of your dreams.
Should take notice.
Really, shouldn't it? But never mind.
There are bad dreams, then no.
It was a good dream.
You know, bad dreams can be horrible, not all the time though.
Yeah.
Night
Hear that?
long night. He had the same strange dream, telling him to go to London Bridge. There he would hear good news. And after 7 nights, he thought, well, I have no choice. I won't get a decent night's sleep if I don't. He packed his pack full of good things to eat. There was some bread. There was some cheese. There were some big old red rosy apples. He packed his pack with a big old flask of ale. Give me a roar if you like ale. You see, Lee, he's thinking about ale right now. I knew it, you see. Bottles of ale, he set up on the track. And John, yeah, he was set in. He walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. He walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. He walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. What did he do?
Where did he go to?
He walked.
Actually, what? He was having a rest. It was a long way.
Oh,
and then
right.
he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. He walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. He walked and he walked and he walked. What did he do?
Well, he possibly had a rest, or he walked and he walked and he walked.
Oh, that's a storyteller's answer, Shane. You're quite. You know what? He'd had a rest earlier. He didn't need another one. He walked for 7 long days until finally he got to London. Wave your hands in the air like you don't care if you've ever been to London.
Oh, I've been. You haven't.
Yeah. Keep waving your hands if you think it's a big, busy, bustling place.
Big bustling place, yeah.
Am I right in saying that, Lee, you live in London right now?
I live in London right now, and it's not bustling.
Hold that thought, Lee. We need you in a minute. Hold that thought. Put it like this, you might not think it's busy, but imagine coming from a small town in Norfolk 500 years ago John Chapman had never seen so many people. He didn't know there were that many people in the world. This was a huge gathering for John Chapman. He walked through the narrow streets until he got to the River Thames. He looked up the river. He looked down the river, and there was London Bridge. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever seen London Bridge.
Hey.
Give me a really big thumbs up if you like London Bridge. You know how to do that, don't you? Like that. That's it. Like that. You know what? London Bridge today is all right. But London Bridge long ago was even better. For London Bridge long ago had houses and shops upon it. People actually lived and worked on London Bridge. He walked up London Bridge until he found a small gap between two houses. He sat back. And he waited. All day long he waited for the good news that the dream said he would have, but no good news came to him. He found a bed for the night just over there. He came back the following day. He sat in the very same spot. And he waited. And he waited. He looked at all the other people gathered. They were an odd lot. Looked a bit like you, funny enough. He said, you're not following me, are you? You were here yesterday, weren't you? Why are you sitting on top of his shoulder? Strange. All day long he waited for the good news that the dream said he would have. But no good news came to him. He came back a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh day. Until finally he thought, what a fool I've been to come all the way at London Bridge just because I had a dream. Don't I feel silly? And he packed his pack to leave. But as he did, a glover came out of his shop, a man who made fancy gloves for fancy people's very fancy hands. And he said in a very Londony sort of way, he said, here, what you doing on my bridge? I've been watching you for 7 days. You ain't bought nothing. You ain't sold nothing. You ain't even been begging. What you doing on London Bridge? Because that's how they talk in London, isn't it, Lee?
Yeah, that's right.
There you go. John Chapman, the peddler of Swaffham, he was forced to tell the glover the very same story that I told all of you of the dream, telling him to go to London Bridge, for there he would hear good news. And when he finished, the glover laughed in a very Londony sort of way, for he went, nah, 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 nah. How did he go? Yeah, 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 yeah. Do you know, I'm not going to make Lee do it. I'm sure.
Yeah, we don't sound like that.
Hmm?
We don't sound like that.
Go on, come on, Lee. Give it to us then. I'm having that. He said, you mean to tell me you came all the way to London Bridge just because you had a dream? Don't you know, dreams are silly. Dreams are sad. Dreams are for fools. You shouldn't take no notice of your dreams, says he. Well, just the other night, said the glover, I had a dream when I lay in my bed above my shop right here on London Bridge. Except in my dream, I didn't live on London Bridge. I lived in a funny little place in the back of beyond. Now, what was it called? Swesham, something like that. In my dream, I lived in a poor man's house. All I had was a big old hole in the roof, and when it rained, it fell in the rain upon the hard earth floor. All I had was a wonky old stool, and every time I sat upon that stool, I fell off and cracked my head upon the floor. In my dream, you know what? I didn't even have glass in the windows. All I had was a wooden shutter, and every time the wind blew, it went... And every time the wind blew fast, it went... like that. But in my dream, I had a garden. And in my garden, there was an apple tree. And in my dream, I had a spade. And I took the spade and I dug at the roots of the apple tree. And can you guess what I found? Gold. Treasure. But if you think I'm going to go wandering across the countryside just for it, yeah. Gone. The peddler of Swaffham was no longer there. If it took him 7 long days to walk from Swaffham to London, it only took him 3 quick days to run all the way back again. Hands up if you can tell me what was the first thing he did when he got back.
Apple
Come on.
Grabbed a
tree.
spade.
Not a
He
shovel.
did. John put his hands up. John was polite. He grabbed a spade and he dug and he dug and he dug and he dug. He dug and he dug and he dug and he dug. What did he do?
He dug and he dug and he dug and he dug. And he rested.
He wasn't going to have a rest, was he? There was gold to be found. The spade struck something hard. He leapt in a hole. He cleared away the earth. There was a box. He heaved it out of the hole. He brought down the spade hard upon the lock. And slowly, very slowly, he lifted the lid. Now, at this point, I'm going to let you all into a little secret. Although I've been telling stories for many years, I've never perfected the art of the creaky lid. You know what must be done. Don't laugh. It's a terrible affliction, Pauline. After 3. 1, 2, 3. But it's a big lid. It's a very big lid.
Broken the hinge.
The lid creaked open. The peddler looked down, and as he did, his eyes went ba-doing, doing, 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 and back again. For what was in the box?
Gold.
Oh. Gold, there was silver, there were jewels. The peddler of Swaffham was as rich can be. And you know what? You can't get much richer than that. Now, he spent some of that money upon Swaffham Church. That's why if you go there, you really will find a carving that tall of a little man with a pack upon his back. The rest of the coin, well, he spent that upon a fair and fine house. But he didn't just keep it to himself. He would invite odd sorts like all of you within. He would feed them upon fine foods. He would feed them upon swan pie, heron pie, and even pickled pike. Has anyone here ever eaten pickled pike? No, it's horrible.
Pike, but not pickled pike.
Oh, pickled pike.
I've eaten
I'll
pickles.
tell the story that I've just told you. And he would finish the story by saying this. He would say, always, always, always follow your dreams. You must follow your dreams.
Very good.
Hey.
Very good. Can I make a suggestion, Dave, what else he could have spent his money on?
Go on.
He could have given some money to, is it Ilyu? Is that how you say your name, Ilyu?
Yeah,
To build a new house for him, like the one that he showed on Facebook the other day.
You know what? It's a lovely house. It is a lovely. You should rent it out.
I've got to go. It was lovely. Thanks a lot. I've got to go. See you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Say goodbye, Gary. Give him a wave. Bye, Gary.
See you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody else.
Bye, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Well,
see you later.
About my next story, I should say that much of my work in the summer is heritage work. I do a lot of stuff at museums, a lot of heritage sites, and one of my favourite jobs is telling in Sherwood Forest. Normally, the first week in August, I would be there at the Robin Hood Festival telling tales and camping in the Greenwoods all week. Now, unfortunately, it looks as if I'm not going to be able to do that this year, so I thought I'd tell you a Robin Hood tale. There are many dark Robin Hood tales, and if I get a chance to tell again, I will tell one of those. But since it's Saturday night, I thought I'd keep it light. I'll tell you a light Robin Hood tale. But as you know already, you must earn it by answering a riddle. So listen carefully. Robin Hood was hunting in Sherwood Forest. He was on his own. His merry men were not with him. They were on their holidays in Barnesdale. Maid Marian was not with him. She was at home mending his spare pair of tights. He was on his own, but he was not alone, because also in Sherwood Forest that evening was the cruel and heartless Sheriff of Nottingham. Give me a visual boo.
Boo.
The sheriff and his men, they fell upon Robin. 20 men. Robin put up a fair and fine fight. He killed 10 of them. They fell at the point of his blade. But then the rest fell upon Robin. They bound him hand and foot. They took him to Nottingham, where he was displayed for the world and his wife to see. Well, as you all know, the sheriff is a cruel and heartless man. But the thing about cruel and heartless men is this. They never want you to know that they're cruel and heartless. And so he spoke these words. He said, if Robin dies this day, it will be by his own hand, not by mine. For behold, I have 2 pieces of paper. On one piece of paper, I shall write the word guilty. On the other, I shall write the word innocent. I shall fold them and place them in a pouch. Robin shall pick. If he picks the one saying innocent, I will gladly let him go free. But if he picks the one saying guilty, he shall hang by the neck until he is dead. Do you know, I was so hoping you were all going to go for that there. Give me a boo. It was very... Yeah, you can stop now. That's enough. He was horrible. He was so horrible. I'll tell you this, he had no intention of letting Robin go. And so it was, he wrote guilty on one piece of paper. He wrote guilty on the other piece of paper. He folded them both. He placed them in the pouch. And he says, choose, Robin of the Hood. Well, Robin, as well as being fair of face, strong of arm, sure of shot, he was also wise of head. He knew the sheriff was trying to trick him, but what could he do? His feet were bound. He could not run away. He was socially isolated, you could say, in one way. But still, he put his hand into the pouch. He took out one of the pieces of paper, but still he went free. Riddle is this. How did he do it? Put your hand up if you can tell me how Robin Hood got away. Come on, Norman.
He took one piece of paper he pulled out and he ate it.
Do you know, that's exactly what he did. And as soon as he swallow it, look, the sheriff said, foolish Robin, how do we know which one you picked? And Robin said, that's easy. Just look at the one that's left said. Everyone, give Norman a big clap. Norman, for getting that, you get a special place in my next story. I've not worked out where it is yet, but we'll go with it.
Under a leaky roof?
We'll see. No, that it was summer. But it was late summer, for there was a waft of wood smoke telling everyone who could read the signs that autumn was coming. And as my story starts, Robin and his merry men, they were seated beneath the trysting tree, the meeting tree in Sherwood, gathering around a roaring fire. And as they sat there around that roaring fire, they filled their bellies upon the king's finest deer, the sheriff of Nottingham's finest wine. And as they filled their bellies, they listened to the stories of young Norman, a handsome young outlaw, newly returned to the greenwoods. And as they listened to his stories, sometimes they smiled, sometimes they were saddened by what they heard. For he told them of births, of deaths, of weddings, of a calf recently born with 2 heads. Imagine that. But Norman saved the best till last. For now he told them of a competition soon to be held in Nottingham to find the finest archer, the best bowman in the whole of merry England. It was the sheriff's idea, said young Norman, and he's had a silver arrow made which is fletched and tipped with gold, to give to the winner as a prize to be handed over by the sheriff's beautiful young wife, a fair young woman for such a foul man as he. Know that at this news, Robin and his men began to argue about who should go to take part in the competition, who should stand guard at the sport. Only one person did not join in, and that was Robin's girlfriend, Maid Marian. She said, you are all fools and dullards. And you, Robin Hood, you are the biggest ninny hammer of them all. For as sure as Little John is the tallest amongst us, Friar Tuck is the wisest. I'll tell you now, the sheriff is as cruel and as cunning as a hungry wolf. He will be watching. He will be waiting for you. But Robin laughed as only Robin could. He went, no! He knew it was a trick. And that was why he must go, to prove himself the finest archer in the land, to prove himself better than bad King John. And so it was. On the day of the great competition, Robin and his men disguised themselves in rich men's gowns and poor men's rags. and they made way for Nottingham. And when they got there, they'd never seen so much hustle and bustle, bustle and hustle. Every inn, every alehouse was full to the brim with archers from across the land, full of those who had come to watch the sport. And Robin's men, they had no problem in blending behind tents and other things, and between the apple-cheeked wives of many a rich merchant. All stood waiting, all stood watching, all stood looking at the silver arrow, for there it hung between two thin willow withies stuck in the ground in front of the Sheriff of Nottingham's throne. And there he sat. He was feasting upon cold cuts. There was some swan pie. There was some heron pie. Do you know, there was even some pickled pike. And as he feasted, he was watching. He was waiting for Robin Hood. But of Robin there was no sign. But now it was 12 noon. The sun was high, the sun was hot. Trumpets were blown. Children were scooped up onto their parents' shoulders. Dogs were leashed as one by one, archers from across the land stepped forward. One by one, they fitted arrow to bow. They leant, they aimed, they loosed at the straw butt set at 50 paces. One by one, they shot their arrows. One by one, they were knocked out of the competition. Even Will Scarlett, even Much the Miller's son, a fine shot with a bow. And now as the sun began to wane, casting long shadows across the archery fields, only 2 men were left. Listen. Are you listening? If you're listening, let me see your ears. Oh, that's good. Close up, that's it. The first was a nobleman, or so he said. He called himself Roger of Doncaster, although the common sort, the likes of you and me, they called him Red Roger, for he had the blood of many an innocent man, woman and child upon his hands. He was the sheriff's man. The other was an old man, bent low by time, big old bushy beard, looked a bit like, no, can't be Norman, he's young, must be John Rowe. He wore a raggedy cloak and he wore a hood and a broad-brimmed hat which covered his face. And he went by the name of Working of the Wold. All eyes upon the 2 men as the straw butts were moved back another 50 paces. Red Roger stepped forward. He fitted arrow to bow. He leant. He aimed. He loosed. The arrow, it whirred, it hummed, it spun, it struck its target, it found its mark, the very centre of the target. This was a fine shot. Such a fine shot, there was a great cheer from the crowd.
Yay!
I don't think you like him very much, you lot, do you? But now all fell silent. All fell silent, all eyes upon the old man, working of the world. He took his time, he leant, he aimed, he loosed. His arrow, it whirred, it hummed, it spun, it twirled, it struck the target, found its mark, sticking in the target right next to Roger's arrow. 2 arrows side by side. Another fine shot.
Hey. Hey. Damn good show.
I tell you what, you lot are a tough crowd. That was impressive, that was. But now everyone fell silent, for no one knew what to do. For so close were the 2 arrows side by side that no one knew who had won the competition. All sat silently until the old man Working spoke up. He said, how would it be if we leave these childish games behind? For instead of shooting at those great big butts, says he, I think we should shoot at those 2 thin willow wands. And he pointed to the 2 thin sticks that held up the silver arrow. Red Roger was forced to agree. He said, yes, let's stick them in the ground at 50 paces, 1 arrow each, and the man who can get his arrow closest, he shall be the winner. But now old man Working, he began to laugh. He said 50 paces, pah! He said, pah! What did he say? Pah! You know, he liked saying it, he said it again. Pah! He said, a boy new to the bow in my village could easily hit one of those wands at 50 paces. Why don't we make it 200 paces?
Oh, boy.
One of them from the crowd, they'd never heard the like. Red Roger was first forced to agree. 200 paces were counted out right over there. The wands were stuck in the ground. Red Roger stepped forward. He leant, he aimed, body and bow shaking. He loosed the arrow, it whirred, it hummed, it spun, it twirled, and more by luck than judgment, it clipped the very edge of one of the sticks, sending a small piece of bark flying through the air. This was a great shot.
Boo! Boo, we don't like him.
It's a secret, I don't like him either. And besides, everyone fell silent. For now it was the time of the old man working at the wall. The old man stroked his bow. He whispered wondrous words. What those words were, I cannot say, for I was too far away to hear on that day. And now he leant, he aimed, he loosed the arrow, it whirred, it hummed, it spun, it twirled, it struck its target, splitting a wand in two. For a moment there was silence. Then there was an ooh from the crowd. Ooh. There was an ah from the crowd.
Ah.
Now there was even an e from the crowd. Lots of Yorkshire folk in that night, I can.
Dad.
Then there was a great roar from the crowd. The crowd surged forward. They scooped up the old man working of the wold. They carried him to the sheriff's wife, and the prize of the silver arrow, which she gladly handed over. And know, my friends, that she truly was a fair young woman for a foul man as he, so lovely that old Working couldn't help himself. He gave her a naughty nod. He gave her a cheeky wink. He gave her a saucy smile. that one there. But that smile was to be his undoing. For now the cruel and heartless sheriff was watching. He recognized the smile in the corner of the old man's eye. For this was no old man really. It was Robin. The sheriff leapt to his feet. He said, Robin of the Hood, you have nodded your last naughty nod. Seize him, men. But it was too late, for Robin's men had come from behind booth and stall. They snatched him back into the crowd. They dragged poor old Robin through the good streets of Nottingham, and the good people gladly started to let them through, but closed up right behind them to stop the cruel sheriff and his men. But Maid Marian had been right all along. The sheriff was as cruel and as cunning as a hungry wolf. But earlier that day, he placed soldiers on all the highways, the byways, the trackways, the pathways, leading back to the grave. And so it was, Robin and his men were forced to leave the track to run over hill and valley until finally they came to a castle rising square, straight and true, surrounded by a moat. And as they got close, the drawbridge was lowered and they ran to safety. For this was the castle of Sir Richard of the Lee, friend to Robin Hood. But how they became friends, I'm afraid that's a story of a day.
Hey!
Well, you know what?
I like that.
There's a saying, isn't there, that time flies when you're having fun. I want to tell you a Chaucer tale to finish off with. I think we've got time for a little bit of a Chaucer tale. Have we got time for a Chaucer tale?
Yes.
All right. The only reason I mention it to you is because at this time, well, I've just spoke about silver, which made me think about the virtual hats on the World Storytelling Cafe website. Not just mine, but all of the tellers, the Marrakesh storytellers, all of them. If you've got a few extra coins, put them in there. If you haven't got much money at the minute, look down the back of the sofa. You never know what you'll find. Just last month when I did it, I found Geoffrey Chaucer. He's been living rent-free since the 15th century in the back of my sofa. No, it's true. He really has, honestly. He's moved out to the shed. He's still living rent-free, but he does gift me a story every now and again. And so I'd like to tell you one of his stories. Would you like to hear that tale very quickly?
Yeah.
There we go then. We won't even bother with a riddle. Well, This is one of my favourite Chaucer tales, although I should say it's a much earlier story still. Like all good storytellers, he took those stories, he adapted them and made them his own. And in actual fact, it's said that this story originated in North Africa, interestingly enough. But in the English version, it's a story about a summoner. Someone who was paid to summon the likes of you, the wrong uns, to court if you'd done wrong, the church courts. If you were caught swearing on a Sunday, and much worse, he would summon you to court. But often the summoner, he would take a fine from you instead, and so he could make lots of money. But not only that, summoners were not well liked, because often they would make up false charges against people just so they could take more coin. And know this, my friends, one day a summoner was riding out early to catch his prey. Guilty or innocent, he did not care, as long as they had caught enough to line his pockets. And as he rode out, thinking about all the false charges he would make, all the coin he would take, he met a stranger riding in the same direction, a man who wore a lustrous long black gown that hung from neck to toe. So too he wore a broad-brimmed black hat which covered his face, and he rode upon a fine stallion. Good day, said the stranger in the broad-brimmed black hat. Well met, replied the summoner, for that's how they talked long ago. Tell me, said the stranger in the broad-brimmed black hat, where are you going so early this day? And so it was, the summoner told the stranger that he was a bailiff going about his master's business, collecting rents, because he did not want the stranger to know of his darkened deeds this day. And since I've asked, or you've asked me what you're doing, or what I'm doing, he was confused. It was early in the morning. It's only fair that I ask you. The stranger in the broad-brimmed black hat, he smiled, but not with his eyes. He said, I am a bailiff of sort, collecting what is due to me. Although know this, my friend, I travel much further than you. And so the two continued to ride together. They talked of this, they talked of that, they even talked of the other. And do you know what? After a while, the summoner thought the stranger in the broad-brimmed black hat was the best friend he'd ever had. For being a summoner and hated by most, he had few friends by which to judge. And now the summoner wished to know more of his new friend, of his name, where he came from, and of the precise nature of his business. And so he asked the stranger in the broad-brimmed black hat. He smiled, but not with his eyes. For he said, I am the devil, and I come from hell. And as to my business, I travel the land, collecting the souls of all who have gifted them to me. By hook or by crook, says he, I shall have all that is due to me this day. And it seems to me, continued the devil, that you and I are in the same business, for we both line our pockets with the misery of others. So I think we should work together this day, and whoever gets the most, he shall share it with the other. Agreed? The summoner looked at the stranger's, or the devil, I should say, fair and fine gown, his fair and fine beast. He looked at the bulging saddlebags that covered the horse's flank, bulging bags full of who knows what. He had an eye for a deal. They shook hands upon the bargain, and two continued as one. And so it was, the summoner was oh so busy about his business, collecting oh so much coin from those who had oh so little to give. But the devil, he took nothing. The devil, he took none. And the summoner grew irked, thinking about all he would have to share with the devil that night. But it was now they heard the squeals of a pig, the cries of an old woman. And as they rounded the bend in the road, they saw an old woman, an old crone, being towed by a pig upon a rope. The pig, it dragged her here, it dragged her there. The only way it didn't drag her was the way she wished to go. Until finally she'd had enough. She said, enough, pig, the devil take you, chitlins and all. Said the summoner to the devil, take the pig. She's offered it to you, take it now. But the devil shook his head and said, alas, I cannot. For the old woman did not mean it. For that pig is all she's got left in the world. Look again. And sure enough, when the summoner looked again, he saw the old woman had taken the pig up upon the rope, and now she was playfully tickling it behind the ear. And at this point in the story, I must ask, has anyone here ever tickled a pig?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, I knew Norman was going to say that. Norman, you must come from Suffolk. They do it all the time down there.
The Ottawa Valley.
I did it in Romania.
They've turned it
That's
into a
slander.
national sport.
That's slander.
Moving
on quickly, the two continued as one. The summoner, oh so busy about his business, taking oh so much coin from those who had oh so little to give. But the devil, he took nothing, he took naught. And now the summoner grew vexed, thinking of all he would have to share with the devil himself. But it was then, as they rode into a village, they heard the cries of a babe in arms. They heard the sobs of a young woman. And they saw the young woman desperately rocking the child backwards and forwards, trying to get it to sleep, until finally she'd had enough. For the louder the cries of the one, the louder the replies of the other. She said, enough, baby, child. She said, the devil take you, sobs and all. Said the summoner. She's offered you the baby. It's not much good at the minute, but it'll grow into a big, tall servant. Take the baby now. But the devil shook his head and said, alas, I cannot, for she did not mean it. For she loves that child more than she loves her own life. Look again. And sure enough, when the summoner looked again, he saw the babe had quietened, and now the young woman sat on the edge of the street, rocking it gently. And so the two continued as one. The summoner, oh so busy, taking oh so much coin from those who had oh so little to give. But the devil, he took nothing. He took naught. And now the summoner, well, he grew peeved, let's say peeved, at all the coin he would have to share. But it was now they heard the whinny of a horse, the crack of a whip, and as they passed through the other end of the village, they saw a cart full of hay had got stuck in the ford. No matter how much the carter on top cracked his whips, he could not free it, until finally he'd had enough. He called out, enough, horses, the devil take you. Horses, cart and hay, he called. The summoner nearly fell off his horse. He said, devil, look, he's given you the lot. Take it now. But the devil shook his head and said, alas, I cannot. For the carter did not mean it. For that cart, those horses, they are his business. If he loses those, his family will starve. Look again. Sure enough, when the summoner looked again, the carter had freed the horses continued merrily on their way. And so the two continued on their journey. The summoner, oh so busy about his business, taking oh so much coin from those who had oh so little to give. But the devil, he took nothing. He took naught. The summoner had enough. He said, it seems to me that you need a lesson in our business. And so he took the devil to the house of a poor old woman who'd done nothing wrong. Yet still he beat hard upon the door, telling the old woman that she was coming to court. If not, he would fine her 12 whole pence, a lot of coin long ago. And if she couldn't pay, she would suffer worse. I'll be damned, said the summoner, if I don't have all that's due to me this day. But the old woman, she'd seen too many hard winters to worry about a summoner knocking at her door. She threw it open and she said, enough, summoner, the devil take you, body and bones. Well, now, the devil laughed. The devil smiled, this time with his eye, and he said, now there was an old woman who meant it. He snatched the summoner up by his hair. He shoved him in one of his saddlebags. He mounted the horse. He flew up high, high, high into the air and down, down, down to who knows where. And I always end this story by saying this. I hope that none of you watching this night ever find out exactly where they went.
Whoa.
And there it is. Well, I hope you enjoyed my tales. I say my tales, they're now your tales. I'm giving them to you. If you want to take them away and tell to other people, do so. Wherever I am in the world, whether I'm sitting here in my cozy cottage or whether I'm on the road, if you tell my tales, your tales, I should say, I'll feel a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much to Julio as well. I hope I got your name right that time. Thank you. And if you want to chat afterwards, stay behind. Thank you.
Fantastic. Hey.
Well done. Well done.
Whoa.
You aced it.
Did I? Who said that?
I did. I knew
Ah,
it.
oh, nice. Oh, lovely. And hello, Sarah. I didn't see you there.
Such weird old Turkish silver coins.
Oh, lovely.
I'll put them in.
I'll have some of that. Thank you very much.
I was curious as to what was in that lumpy bag.
Oh, I think it was the souls of everyone else, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
I think
yes.
it was, yeah. And
Mhm.
a few coins as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know
We
what?
know
I've never
you've got
looked.
soul.
Never looked.
You don't know how deep that bag is. You
Deep
might
enough
fall
to
into it.
Yeah, it's deeper than my story bag, that's for sure. There's
Yeah.
more souls in there, and I've got stories.
Dave, you were fantastic.
Thank you very much, John. It's lovely to see you all here. Do you know, I'd like to say it's a small but select crowd, isn't it, for a first one? That's
Well, we
always-
don't know how many people are listening beyond the room. We,
Do you know that we do?
Mm.
Everyone, I'm here. Hello.
Anyone can be watching and not zooming, so they could be listening.
Yeah. Do you know, I hadn't occurred to that. Hello, everyone. I'm famous. Look, I'm on the telly.
How do you get how can you see everybody? In which dot do you press to see everybody?
Button you press.
You've got a gallery view, you've got the speaker view, and you've also got the gallery view, but even then you don't see everybody.
No, you
See
don't.
everybody.
Oh, hello, everyone.
If you press gallery view, you get to see the best looking people in the room.
So, I've got 4 squares up at the moment, one being you,
Yeah.
Julio, Lee, and I'm trying to get rid of me. I want someone else besides me in the corner.
All right.
Bit of a gallery view now.
How the hell did you get into Marrakesh? I thought they'd closed the borders.
Was that
Your
for me or was that
background-
someone else?
Oh, wow.
Mike Wood's background is somewhere I know well in Marrakesh.
Yes, no. Let me explain. So I'm Mike, and over my shoulder here is
Mike.
a half-constructed storytelling cafe.
Hey!
This is where we're all going to be when we have our storytelling festival next year.
Woo! Oh, that would be nice.
Mike,
Yes.
can I bring Geoffrey Chaucer with me? Is that all right?
Are you going to bring the sofa as well?
Oh, yeah, I'll bring the sofa. Yeah, it goes everywhere with me. The sofa does. Yeah, it's very comfy.
Easy jet, charge your arm and a leg for sofas. You know.
Mike, are you actually there, or is that a green screen effect that you've got going behind with the
No, that's
photograph?
a green screen, okay. I'll tell you
I
what
don't
I'll
know.
do, just to show off.
Go on.
Hey.
How's that?
Hang on. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Going off.
We can see why Mike's head of organising all the tech, can't we?
You know, I wish I could do that. I really do. Hang on.
I think you've got to have there's a kind of version of this that's free and a version that you can buy. And if you've got the buyable version, you can do all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, because actually, funny enough, you should say that, Gary, because I was doing a Zoom the other night and someone actually lifted my background. How they managed it, I've no idea, and actually put that behind them, which I was very impressed with.
The thing is, Dave, you're just sort of like on the coast overlooking, the sea, and you've put that old bookshelf behind you, just on the green.
I have. Yeah.
If you turn that off, we'll see what you're really looking at.
Yeah, do you know, actually, I'm sitting down my garden admiring my brassicas. It's lovely down there. The wind's a bit whistly, but yeah.
Hi, Yuli. Hi, Yuli. It's nice to see you again.
Hey, everyone.
I hope you're
Nice to
well.
see all of you.
So,
Yeah,
Lulio,
all good, thank you.
Lulio, I don't have. Am I saying your name right, Lulio?
No.
How do I say your name?
He's very tolerant.
How do I say your name?
So, Julio.
Well, it's easy for you to say.
Yeah. Julio.
Andrew.
If you had, if I had the correct version of this, which I think is like,
I'll tell him, Andrew.
pardon? Sorry?
Yeah, you can call him Andrew.
Andrew. Oh, that's easier. Yeah. Hello, Andrew. So if you have the version of this where you could do backgrounds, you could do.
Yeah, it's easier.
It's what? Sorry.
Basically, it doesn't work on Android, so it depends on what device do you have. Because if you have something from Apple and has a good processor, then you can put the virtual background.
So you could use that. You could use that technology to have different backgrounds to tell stories with. So, but you'd have to DJ that yourself and press the buttons, or would a second person be able to do the technology for you as you were telling stories?
Can they hear us?
We'll have to look into that, Gary. It's a good idea. So you could take people away, couldn't you? Transport them around the world.
You could say they went to this fabulous garden and the fabulous garden would appear, and then they were riding on this camel. And there's the camel. But I presume you'd have to do that. Going to space like Sarah is.
No change there.
With her co-pilot.
Oh, look at that.
It'd be certainly worth playing with, but I think it's about 20 quid a month, is it, to have the full version?
No,
sorry, to mute this.
I haven't paid
Dave,
anything.
No, but in order to use the technology that's being displayed, that's taking Mike now to to Richard Branson's island.
But the thing is, Gary, we have a, I think it's called Webinar, the version that we use, and we're courtesy of some technology from Lee, so this is the, we've got some of us in the room here. We've got people watching us on the website. We're also live on Facebook and we're live on YouTube as well. So there's lots of bells and whistles in the background.
And are there bells and whistles that as guests to your account that we can use as well, or would we?
Yeah. So everything that we're doing here is visible on all of those places. We'll have to have a look and see whether we can change backgrounds for you.
Okay. Well, that'd be an interesting thing to play with, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. It definitely would. It definitely would. I know we can screencast, so we can share screens and share things that we've got going on screens. Whether we can do that as a background, we'll have to look into.
Sarah's fruit and veg there.
Nice bit of fruit and veg. Dave.
Is that from the garden?
Dave, I really enjoyed the Peddler of Swaffham story. I lived about 5 miles from Swaffham for years. And if you go into the church, not only do you find the peddler, but you also find opposite at the front, looking at the altar, his dog, which I love.
Do you know what? I always forget to put the dog in my version. If I don't and someone points it out, I normally say after 5 days on the road, he got hungry and ate the dog. Out tonight.
But I love that story. It's beautiful. Thank you.
What's really lovely about that story is, as I say, it's travelled the world. You'll hear versions from all over. I think it originated in India, but when I tell it, you'll get, lucky with a lot of the festivals I do, you meet a lot of people from all over the world. And you apparently there is even a Native American version of that story. When it went over, where, how that, ended up as a Native American tale, who knows? But we don't, do we? And the longer I tell stories, the more I realise that there are only a certain amount of stories in the world.
But John Chapman existed as a historical figure, didn't he?
He did. He was very rich.
So it's kind of people adapting stories to explain money that they came across by nefarious means.
Yeah, I mean, he appears in the records, the church records, for paying a substantial amount of money to rebuild the church, and so that's how it happened. Because this man suddenly came out of nowhere with all his coins.
Did he fund some almshouses as well?
I believe so. And so, I mean, you get it all the time. There's lots of stories around Francis Drake about him being a wizard, after the Spanish Armada. If people suddenly appear and do amazing things, these stories gravitate to them. They're like story magnets.
I mean, it's like ghost stories on the Suffolk coast, isn't it? Suffolk and Essex coast, because most of the ghost stories there were created by smugglers to keep people away.
Yeah.
So
see, the same thing is true of Robin Hood. Robin Hood, we all know Robin Hood now, but in medieval times, he was just one of a whole series of outlaws. There was Eustace the Monk, Fulk Fitzwarren, William Clydesley, Clym of the Clough. There were loads of them, but gradually all of their stories got put onto Robin, and you know, they've disappeared, and he's kind of sucked up all of their tales. And it's just
it's a bit. I mean, if you think of what, you know, like the Kalevala in Finland, is that was collected by one person who went around and collected hundreds of local stories and then whacked them into one mythology.
Yeah.
A national, you know, so, and it was at the time when Finland was trying to create some kind of national identity.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, we certainly did it over here after the Norman conquest. Many of the tales coming in, Chaucer and all of those being collected, they've all come in with the Normans. They've all come in with the during the time of the Crusades. So of course they're being brought in from the Middle East at that time, the Far East, through traders. But what's interesting is what we then do to them. We then make them our own, you know. So we share the tales with the rest of the world, but we subtly adapt them, and that's what we all do today, still, of course. You know, just to pick the bits.
I want to get a track. Elio, well, who was the sort of the Romanian version of Grimm's? Petra. I've got several collections of, you know, editions of. There's Romanian sort of version of Grimm's or Hans Christian Andersen, or, you know, a big
Romanian stories.
Yeah. It's sort of
Vladdy Baylor was.
Just a second.
But who?
It was called Vladdy Baylor.
No, not the figure. But who was the big collector of Romanian tales? That, you know, the fairy tales.
I don't know that, unfortunately.
Someone gave me a sort of hard children's book version of it, but it was kind of like Grimm's fairy tales or Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales.
Do you know that, Bianca?
Maybe it's, I think, Petra Ispirescu, maybe.
That's the one. That's it. I knew it was a Petra. I couldn't remember the second name. Who was it, Bianca?
Petre Ispirescu.
Petra
Yes.
Ispirescu. I want to find, you know, there needs to be an English edition of that because of that book, because, you know, it's a standard, but his book of fairy tales is standard in Romania. But, you know, I'd have to get a lot better Romanian than my daily Duolingo to be able to understand it.
Well, I'll start translating them.
No, there are two collections of stories. It's an oversized book. I have it on the shelf. I went to get some others, but one of the people who collected and translated into English is a fellow named M. Gaster. And he published sometime about in the 1880s. No, 1915. So
yeah,
but he would have used how did you say that name?
Ispirescu.
Yeah, and there's a bishop as well, if I remember correctly.
I haven't managed to find a complete English version of it. I mean, there's a really good English book of Romanian fairy tales, which has got some of his stories in.
Because one thing you have to remember about
Norman's gone off to find it. I'm looking at his enormous bookshelf, very well ordered bookshelf, as opposed to the chaos of mine.
Do you know, the one thing, and that's one thing, is a lot of these things, like even Grimm's, I mean, they're putting their own version or spin on stories that have been around a long time. And in actual fact, they're kind of imposing, you know, they're sanitizing them quite a lot of the time. So
but it wasn't Grimm's who sanitized them. It was Grimm's publisher.
Yeah, but even the trouble is, there a lot of them are actually done for grown-ups originally. The trouble is, we think, yeah, you're right, because originally they're darker tales, and some of them are a little bit rude, let's say, as well. And if you go back to the earlier versions, they're much more interesting than what you get later with the Grimms, of course.
But Hans Christian Andersen, who we all think of being more fluffy than Grimm's, probably because of his name, is they're much nearer the original versions because you know, his editor didn't muck about with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're getting a bit academic here, aren't we? Sorry about that, folks.
You know what I found quite interesting is how many tellers have adapted stories, even ever so slightly, to our present circumstances.
Yeah,
it makes the you know, the cafe and the sort of body of work that we're creating together really interesting in that respect.
I think you're right, Mike. I mean, it is, and I think that's. I mean, there was a thing on Facebook not long ago about talking about the story and about how much storytellers should put into their story. And someone came across, and Maria's gone, unfortunately, but she was talking about this. You know, there was one school of thought that the storytellers shouldn't put themselves in the story, that you should keep the story pure. But the only argument with that is that it assumes there's only ever one version of the story in the first place, which of course it's nonsense. The stories change and grow all the time. And but yeah, I think that the storytellers always put yourselves in the story. I mean, that's what people come to see. They like the personalities of certain storytellers and not others. And you know, if you just want a story, read a book. It's the storyteller is part of it, I think.
What Duncan told me, and it's a generalization, but I used to find it really difficult collecting when I was sort of walking around places. I'd be given stories, you know, when I was up in Lapland and stuff, I'd be given these stories in bars, and about 2 o'clock in the morning. They were always kind of short, and they were family stories. They were stories that had been passed from someone's grandmother. And but unfortunately, before I went there, I've just been staying with Duncan, and it's.
So Duncan is a great Scottish travelling storyteller.
Yeah. He was the one we all sat at, or those of us of a certain vintage sat at the Neil, and Ian Douglas did as well, and spent a lot of time. And what Duncan said to me was, folk tales you don't muck about with because they're family tales. You know, which is a huge generalization, but it was good enough. It was good enough. Whereas wonder tales, you know, which are like fairy tales and all that sort of stuff, you can muck about with as much as you like because they change anyway through the centuries. So, and as a rule of thumb, I found that really useful while collecting, because then it didn't worry me if a story I was given wasn't big enough, wasn't long enough or big enough to be used in performance, or I'd use it as a filler or something, and I wouldn't try and stretch it out. Now, I mean, I don't know how much how that sits. Norman's just gone and found the books we wanted.
I couldn't find the big ones. I found another one that might be useful to people who want to look up Romanian tales. Translated from the Romanian by Iona Sturza, and a few other names, Lazarescu, and it's by Twain Publishers in New York.
And what's the title of it?
It's called Fairy Tales and Legends from Romania.
What was that?
Fairy Tales and Legends from Romania.
Yeah, I think I have that. Yeah.
But there was a couple popular editions of Romanian tales. It doesn't even say Romanian on it. The only clue is the fact it comes from the original collector. And that's what I was rummaging around for. And this is the mistake I made. I've been trying to arrange my library over the last month. And of course, now that I've tucked everything away, I can't find it.
It's always a mistake. If you live in chaos, the useful stuff is up the top of the pile.
That's right. But I can put it in the comments if somebody wants.
Thank you, Norman. Could you put it in do you use Facebook?
Yes.
Could you put it in the World Storytelling Cafe community?
Of course. Oh, yeah. Yes, I can do that. Okay, I'm going to show off a little bit here. I have about 6,000 books.
Wow. Whoa.
And yes, thank you.
How do you reach the top of the
almost
pile?
a cue to what?
He's actually sitting on books.
No, not this time.
How do you reach the top of the pile?
I have piles of books. You can stand up. No, I've only done that a couple times. But I got the usual aids of rickety ladders and other devices. The top shelf is the last one to get filled.
Can we ask where you are, Norman?
I'm in Toronto, Canada.
Wonderful.
Hey.
But I
Great.
travel a lot. I was in Shrewsbury, or is it Shrewsbury? I get corrected every time.
Shrewsbury.
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 Depends how posh you are, Norman.
You know, all the English here will have an argument about that.
I've used both words, and I've been corrected on both pronunciations.
Quite right too.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Just
it's the
keep you
same with,
confused.
is it David Bowie or is it David Bowie? It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's Shrewsbury,
Yes,
Shrewsbury.
the answer's
You know,
it gets worse. You get that, like country areas, like down in Cornwall. The guy who was doing all the stuff for I don't know, it was some big costume drama, a Needing Line or something. I don't know what it was. He was writing all the songs for it, and he'd go to one village and they say, "Oh, you've got the accents spot on." And he'd go to the next village and they'd say, "Oh, that was complete rubbish." So you know, I mean, it's no.
I have a similar thing. It's occasionally I like to tell trickster tales, and one of my favourite tricksters is the German. Now forgive my pronunciation, Till Eulenspiegel, Uhlenspiegel, and
Right.
I was telling in Sherwood Forest, and this German came up and corrected me, and he was a medieval German. Then a Dutch guy came up and said, "No, you've got it wrong," and he said it another way. And I kid you not, these two started arguing backwards and forwards about the precise way to say the trickster's name, which I won't repeat. And I went in the back of my tent, I made a cup of tea, I had something to eat, and I came out half an hour later, and they were both still standing in front of my tent. German guy, Dutch guy, and they were getting very heated by this time because they both claimed the trickster for their own anyway, and that was quite interesting to watch.
In Canada, there's a place. Now I'm going to spell the name of this place. It's in Ontario along the Ottawa River, but I'm spelling it and then I'll give you the pronunciation, and you can figure out how one went from to the other. It's spelled D-E-S, then the second word J-O-A-C-H-E-M. How would you say that?
Shrewsbury.
And okay, you beat me kind of to it. Swisha.
Say again.
Say again.
Swisha. That's how the locals say their name.
One more time.
Swisha.
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 Well, Dave, it's like Habsburg, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, and Wyndham as well, mate.
And Wyndham, yeah.
And Wormigee.
Yeah, that's normal for Norfolk. That is. It sounds like Toronto and Norfolk have, Canada and Norfolk have got a lot of Scotland.
Oh, Toronto.
Yeah,
we live in Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah, that does sound a bit Norfolk, doesn't it?
Stopped on the A1 going north, and I had a gig in Alnwick. But I didn't know. I just looked on the map for the. I pronounced it as it was spelled. So there's these two cops said, "Where are you going?" I said, and I can't even remember they said, I said Alnwick or something, and they hadn't the faintest idea what I was talking about. It's only 10 minutes up the road.
Yeah, that's about it.
So Norman.
Yes.
You are presumably a storyteller yourself.
I've told a few stories in a few places.
Yeah.
As far as Sri Lanka and Israel and Bangladesh.
Have you told any in Shrewsbury?
Why haven't I got you on the site then?
Because I fly under a lot of radar.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I am coming out. No, I worked with a program called the Butterfly Garden in Sri Lanka, and when I went on the road, I just basically saved up some money, hit the road, and went traveling.
Okay. Well, you're not travelling at the moment on account of the lockdown, which is why we're all nattering in this thing. So get in touch. So
I will.
Facebook me or email me on john@johnrowe.com, and we'll put you on at the cafe. We'll give you we'll do a set. I need more Canadians. I just did a North American week, or I used the we did a North American week, and I only had one Canadian on, and as my whole oral history of my that I was brought up with was from the west coast of Canada. I'm kind of took me 70 years to get to it, but I felt there was a huge gap in my week. So we'd love to have you on, Norman.
Yeah, but I'm probably as close to England as I am to the west coast of Canada right now.
Yeah, I realise this. You know, my father went there when he was 15 by boat, and had all his money stolen by the person on the boat, and then went across by train from to Vancouver, where he was supposed to be picked up by his father, who wasn't. He was fed by nuns on the way by trains, because in that time, sort of pre Second World War, it took a long time by train to get from one side to the other.
Right.
Nuns fed him, and then he couldn't find his dad at the other end, and the nuns found him in a pub or something. So, yeah. So I was brought up on all those tales of the vastness of the place. So I finally got to Vancouver Island 3 years ago. But it took me 70 years to get there.
Better late than never.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get in touch with you, John. Okay.
Yeah. You can either do it on Facebook, John Rowe on Facebook, or you recognise me because you see me on all this.
I'm on Facebook too, but I do funny things there too.
If you go to the community of the Storytelling Cafe, there's an announcement at the top with the email you need to contact the people who set up the storytelling sessions. That may be your easiest route.
Yeah.
Sarah, you've just simplified the whole process. What do you mean? We were trying to complicate it here.
I've been trying. How could you repeat that?
There's a community on Facebook called the World Storytelling Cafe Community, and it has constant news about what these reprobates are up to. At the top of that page is an email address that you can contact to join us. Alternatively, my email address is redsarah with an H @live.com, and if you send it to me, I'll get it to the right people.
All right.
Join the gang.
I've never been called the right people, Sarah. Thank you.
I wasn't referring to you, John Rowe.
I've been enjoying this story so much. Thank you.
Have you been watching the tellers on the site, Norman?
Yes. I'm working my way slowly through them. I heard, Dave, I heard you yesterday on the recorded one. Did you like it? How much will you give me if I...
It's supposed to work the other way.
Oh,
I'll tell you what, mate. I'll let you tickle me pig if you said you didn't like it.
Okay, I didn't quite tickle the pig. I used a stick to scratch it on the top of its head, which it liked very much.
Fair enough.
So I've scratched the pig, not tickled it. But I was taking artistic license.
That's right. They can bite sometimes.
As the old song goes, you can tell a man who boozes by the company he chooses. And the pig got up and slowly walked away.
Okay, I'll give you one for that. You can tell that this is for Canada. You can tell that he's a lumberjack and no common bum, for none but a lumberjack stirs his coffee with his thumb.
You're in.
Pardon? Okay. I'm just being called to my dinner, so I'm going to bid you all a fond.
Well, share it, you selfish sod.
I'm not sure I'll get the sausage through the screen, Gary. But you know, I've always shared everything with you whenever
Absolutely.
I've come across
I have shared several fine liquids with you, Gary. And it's usually been from your bottle.
It's your turn to get the whiskey out in Chippenham.
What are you having for your tea, Gary?
Pardon?
I said, what are you having for your tea? Not pickled pike, are you?
Not pickled pike, no. We're having sausages with mash and onion gravy.
Nice.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be great.
Gary's for supper then.
Yeah, well, if you, if only you were able to come round, you'd all be welcome. So I'm going to go. And thank you very much.
Enjoy your dinner.
Thank you very much. And thank you guys for setting it up and giving us the opportunity to perform.
Cheers, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks. Listen, since our chat has now lasted as long as Dave's set did, perhaps this is the moment to. Perhaps this is the moment.
Now
to.
Gary's been called to dinner. Now the important person is leaving. We'll close it.
I think it's simply the aroma of sausages wafting through. It's driving you all away.
Nice. They're storytellers, Mike. They're
Brilliant.
storytellers.
See you later.
So next on live is in Douglas Tuesday evening. And in the meantime, if you have one more round of applause and you can fade us out.
Bye, everyone. See you
Thank
soon.
you, Dave.
Bye.